Hello, everyone. My name is Peter, and this is The Burning Question. I have the pleasure of welcoming to the show Sampo Tukiainen, the co-founder and CEO of Carbofex from Finland. Welcome to the show, Sampo.
Thanks, Peter. Happy to be here.
Well, so you've been in this field for a really long time and kind of an innovator in this space. And, one of the more, knowledgeable people and public people in biochar for a little while now, culminating, I would say, most recently in your grant from Shopify. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, how you got into this and the founding story of Carbofex, kind of where you guys are now?
Well, to make a long story short, I'm going to skip the history part, but I've been on biochar for almost all of my professional life, and pyrolysis and gasification, as an engineer, chemist, and entrepreneur, obviously. And how did I get into biochar? Well, it's a combination of a lot of things: history and how I see the future, and carbon removals, and I've just always felt very fascinated about the black stuff. And I don't know, I'm looking at a chunk of charcoal, and I'm like, why is this so fascinating? What's in this stuff that fascinates me so much, and I can't really answer that question other than it is fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Well, so what does Carbofex do, and I guess when did you guys start, and what's the growth of your company since over that time?
We started Carbofex about 4 years ago in September 2016, and there was one guy in addition to me, and another one that came along immediately after. So basically, we're 3 founders in the company. And the first thing we did was we set up this plant, which was like inherited from my past activities. Mm-hmm. And we started out as biochar producers because we thought that we wanted to demonstrate that we're able to produce biochar, and high quality biochar, but also sell it to applications that would have enough volume and enough value for us to make a living doing it. So, and this has been a challenge since the last 12 years, which is when we actually found out how to make biochar in industrial quantities. But ever since, we had the question that how can we make a living off of it? So ever since, we've been looking at these different applications, and we've come quite a bit since.
Yeah.
And Carbofex, but Carbofex is an equipment supplier or technology company above all. Mm-hmm. But basically, biochar is where we have traction. Mm-hmm. And everybody wants our biochar, and we could sell much more than we can make today. So that's where we have traction. And a lot of people have told us that they would be really happy to finance our product expansion, or production expansions, or capacity expansion, or client projects. But for some reason, a lot of VCs see investing directly into a biochar company is risky. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting why there's so much traction in the production side, but not so much in the technology side. But we have to go where we have traction, and we have to stay alive somehow. So we've been pretty serious about producing biochar. I think we are. Somebody may challenge that now, but for long we've been the largest producer in Europe. Mm-hmm. In terms of production capacity and also volume. Mm-hmm. And we were the first Nordic producer to receive the EBC certification, and first Nordic ones to receive the EBC Premium certification. And I could go on all night. So
well, I won't make you do that.
Yeah.
So describe a little bit, if you can, if you're willing to, in either in specifics or in ranges. How many people do you guys employ? How much biochar do you make? And then where do you mostly sell it?
Right now, the total head count is about 9 people, and including part-timers. We have like 6 regular, steady, regulars, if you want to call it that. And then we run the weekends with a different crew. So there's a different shift system. So we use my daughter helps, and my friends help, and everybody helps, but they all get paid, so yeah. It's not just helping. And so what was the
and then how much biochar do you actually make? I imagine it varies, but
yeah, this year we will make about 5,000 cubic meters, which is a little more than 500 tons this year. But it's not our capacity. Our capacity is higher than that, and we've invested in a new dryer to be able to reach that capacity, although we haven't gotten there yet. But drying is our bottleneck. So the capacity of the plant is about 1,000 tons. And there's always a range because, different feedstocks yield different amounts of carbon, and then you do carbon with different specs. Higher carbon content, you get less yield. Lower carbon content, more yield. So they're all ranges, but that's pretty much where we are. And we sell 90% of our production goes to Sweden to, but let's say green infrastructure projects where they often combine grow media for trees or perennials or even grass, turf. And, they kind of use those grow beds to filter stormwater, for example, that washes off the streets and contains a lot of nutrients and other contaminants. So the biochar picks up the nutrients and some water, and it nourishes the trees, and at the same time they remove the nutrients from the runoff, which is then discharged into the sea. And phosphorus in the Baltic in particular is the situation is very bad. It's massive algal blooms every summer. So
it's a lot of work to do there, obviously.
yeah. So that's what we do. And for the last little more than a year, we've been running in 3 shifts. And like spring of last year, our production really or demand really started picking up in spring of 2019. And
interesting.
Risk produced with our own risk. So we probably had like 400 or 500 bags of biochar in our yard when spring came. But then, we found the right buyer, and it was all gone in a couple of months. And ever since we've been trying to keep up. So right now the problem is different, that we need more capacity, and we have to either get our clients to build them or then build them ourselves. So
it sounds like you talked about yourself as an equipment provider, and then it sounds like obviously selling biochar is a big part of your revenue stream. Like, how do you break down your revenue streams, and like, do you sell a lot of equipment? How does that work?
Well, so far what we have now is our proof of concept plant. So we have decided not to offer it to others before we prove what we call a shakedown period, which is something that developers use. And it's a period when you really put your technology or process to an industrial environment, and you operate it like they do in industry, which is brutal. So you run them 7,000 to 8,000 hours a year. You never maintain them or clean them, and we clean them and we maintain them. But generally in industry, when you go, you see interesting things, and you're like, why do you don't remove all this dirt? Nobody told me to, and nobody does that, unless they have to. So it's a brutal environment, and let's say that if you get downtime is extremely expensive. I think you have a pulp mill, and they go out of production for a day. The cost can be like 3 million in one day. Well, it's not 3 million with us. It's more like 3,000 or 5,000, but it's still money, and we in production, and pretty much you can tell if something's been proven or not in an industrial context. It's like you see it from a long distance. All the components that they use in industry, they're really high kind of IP rating. They are dust proof, they are waterproof. You can leave them out in the rain for 2 years, and there should be no damage that occurs to proper industrial equipment. So it's well, anyhow, we haven't sold any machines yet. I would say 80% of our revenues comes from selling biochar. And maybe 15% comes from selling CO2 removals, and 5 to 10%, depending on the season, comes from selling district heat, or it's just heat. We don't want to call it district heat because it's just hot water, but if we say district heat, then people think that you can't do anything else than heat districts with that. But you can actually use that for process energy. You can use that for cooling. You can even use that to boil off seawater and make distilled water, desalination, thermal desalination. So a lot of ways you can use the heat from the process.
Well, so it sounds like you're kind of like, now you have this equipment and you're understanding the applications that work. Where are you focusing your energy in terms of growth? I mean, are you going to try to scale up and sell a lot of machines? Are you going to do partnerships to work with people? And how do you think about like defining the sector that you're working in?
Well, in the short term, we're looking to also add production capacity, but it's from a strategic kind of point of view, because we want to build our version 2.0 plant, because the one that we operate today is 12 years old. So, obviously it's not our latest know-how, and it doesn't look like the plant that we would sell you today. So we want to make one that looks like, one you would get.
Right.
And that has all the latest, improvements and the know-how.
Right.
And doesn't have any of these historical remnants of.
I was going to say, you probably have like a little appendix and vestigial limbs.
Appendices here and there. Yeah, exactly. So, that's one of those things. And what was your question again? Sorry, I keep forgetting.
Yeah, just so when you're thinking about going, when you grow, it sounds like there are lots of potential things that you can do, right? You could you could explicitly try to sell more machinery. You could partner with people that want more biochar and build machines for them. You could focus on a particular application, say working with people that want to plant trees or doing something else. How do you guys think about that? And what are the areas that you're specifically focused on for the next, say, 2 years?
Well, everything's not public. I don't know what I can say, but certainly we are looking for partners, because what we want to do is focus on the technology. But to be able to sell the technology, obviously we need to have applications where we can use the biochar that we then make.
Right.
And they need to be. We've been going after applications where we can use the carbon more than once, maybe 2 or 3 times. So that, say for an example, we take the biochar and use it to remove phosphorus from fluents or runoffs.
Yeah.
Then, we take the biochar, once it's loaded with phosphorus and nitrogen, another nutrient often found in the same waters where phosphorus is removed from. You can use it to make growing media for, let's say, landscaping or horticulture, or depending on the kind of, if it has contaminants or if it's just, nutrients or, but in many cases you could use it for horticulture as a horticultural growing media. And then, once the greenhouse has, grown 1 or 2 crops in it, they can then sell that as a soil amendment. Or let's say that if you were someone else, you could lease the growing media to the greenhouse, and once they've used it, you'd sell it to the farmer.
To a farmer or something.
Yeah, and the farmer doesn't want to pay, what we asked for our raw biochar, and it doesn't make any sense for him to use that because it doesn't have any nutrients.
Right.
It would just prevent growth in his field for the first year, because it pulls the nutrients out so effectively that you can tell that in the growth.
Right. So you just mentioned, phosphorus capture and nutrient streams. Can you give us an example of the kind of work that you're focused on now in that category? That seems compelling.
Yeah. Well, you have a lot of applications. Wastewater treatment obviously is one. In Europe, we're looking at, we have like a lot of legislation regarding, like preservation of water bodies and, the kind of safeguarding, so nothing that would then deteriorate their condition any further is not allowed. So, and it's like pretty heavy legislation. One massive pulp mill just didn't get an environmental permit because of this same legislation. And so really, wastewater treatment plants are going to have to get much more of their phosphorus out. They're going to have to get all the pharmaceutical residues and fire retardants and hormones, whatever you have in the wastewater. So that's one. But then there are some that are like landfills, for example. They leach massive amounts of extremely high phosphate, phosphorus laden waters. Also nitrogen in there. And quite often you have to do something about those waters. Even you have to drain them into the sewage network, or you have to treat them on site.
Right.
The other thing would be fish farms, for example, that are basically limited by their phosphorus quota, which stipulates how much phosphate you can actually discharge. I'm using phosphorus and phosphate kind of interchangeably, but I'm talking about the same thing, dissolved phosphorus.
Right.
The fish farms generally would benefit greatly from having kind of like being able to treat their effluent or runoff, which just often just one circulation. They pump it in from a lake, and then it goes through the tank, and then they drain it back in. So we filter it before it's drained into the lake. And once again, you get the biochar is not consumed in the process. It's only loaded with nutrients. So then you have to come up with other uses, and farming and horticulture all seem natural when you have nutrient-rich biochars. So
that seems exciting. I mean, that is something presumably that fish farms and I don't know, sewage treatment places already pay for. So there's maybe a market that you can, in which you can plug in the biochar and people can see value, as opposed to it being kind of like a new additive in the way that it is and conceived of in much of farming. Is that right?
Well, certainly they know that phosphorus is an issue for them, and they try all kinds of ways to reduce the amount of phosphate that they discharge, and they do invest heavily into wastewater treatment, for example.
Yeah.
And you have aquaculture is a mega trend today. It's actually the fastest growing, let's say, like area of animal husbandry
really?
in the world. Yes, and the value of aquaculture produce, I think it was 5 years ago, exceeded the value of beef. That was
oh my gosh,
annually. So it's a mega trend, and well, everybody knows that, at least here, the trend is that there people are eating less and less meat and eating more fish. I'm a vegan myself, so I don't really encourage others to consume animals, but certainly I want to mitigate harm and kind of like environmental negatives.
Yeah.
So if we can help on that, it's good.
So in the next, say, couple of years, is there a big enough market for you to focus on one of these verticals, aquaculture or sewage treatment or phosphorus capture generally, and just kind of accelerate that direction? Is that how you're thinking about it?
Well, I'm really optimistic about it at the moment. And we know that in the phosphorus, let's say, scene or sphere of things, you have a lot of people that are willing to pay for solving that problem. And they are using other methods to address that at the moment. But, ours we see is much better because there are no consumables effectively.
Right. You don't burn or destroy the thing that you're using. And in fact, you probably, biochar filtered, for example, through an aquaculture system is probably increases its value.
Yes, it does. Actually, you don't have to charge it. You don't have to load it.
Right.
And in many cases, it makes a big difference, and somebody could pay more for it. And there are, like loaded biochar is a product category itself. So, but what were you asking? Once again, my memory is failing me today.
No, it's all right. No, I was just saying that it strikes me as that's kind of an area of potential focus. Is that a big enough market that you could just see yourself expanding into it?
And especially, when we talk about the cascade use, then you can start off with less because you get more value out of the same stream. So it's enough if we find a couple of good clients for the phosphorus removal, and then we're working with the company. We're hoping to come together based in the Netherlands. That's really big in the growing media and also environmental services. So and biological fertilizers. So we see it all come together with them, and we don't really want to spend so much time or get scattered in all over the place.
Right.
We'd rather be able to say with a straight face that we're focusing in the technology, and then let's say partners who are in that business already would then catch the ball and kind of take it further from there. And that's kind of one of the things behind our perceived European ventures or joint ventures,
right?
However you want to call that. But yeah, we want to work with the right kind of people, and the applications, there are so many. Anything from concrete to asphalt to phosphorus removal to other filter applications and grow media and feed, all those. So it's huge. One other example is a lot of farms do what they call when they use slurry system, manure slurries, and they separate the sludge into what's called solid fraction and liquid fraction.
Mm-hmm.
And the farmers they want to get rid of the liquid fraction because there's a lot of tons of water that they just have to sprinkle around their fields, and a lot of diesel gets burned in the process. So what we're looking at now is if we can just filter the liquid component through biochar and make it so clean that we can discharge it in a ditch.
Right.
Very clean.
Right.
So we wouldn't even necessarily have to sell the biochar to them. We could just lease it for that application, and then they just send it back to us once it's loaded. And,
then you can
we pack it again and sell it for other applications. So ideally, that's what it could be. I'm not saying that we're doing all of these things right now, but we're looking into this water treatment, or one company is, and phosphorus removal, both with fish farms, landfills, and urban effluents. We're doing all that. Landfill leachate.
That's exciting. Okay, so with each of these, so that I have a good understanding and people who are interested in hear what you're talking about and are interested in talking with you, your ideal scenario is kind of you provide technology expertise around biochar production and the understanding of how to hook it into maybe an existing process or system, and then you partner with people that say, okay, we're people that do aquaculture, or we're people that plant trees in cities, or we're people that manage sewage systems, right?
Yep.
And you plug in as your technology provider to them. That's your okay, cool.
And we kind of see ourselves as we are kind of I don't know if there's a term for that, but we want to bring people together.
Mm-hmm.
We see a lot of people with different ideas, and then they need other people who have ideas that kind of support what they're trying to do, or if somebody wants to make biochar and the other one wants to buy biochar at its most simple form, then we can bring those two people together. Or we can also offer an offtake agreement for the wannabe producer, to help them get off the ground, and then sell the biochar to our existing market in the meantime. So that's
really cool, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's great to hear you talking about phosphorus capture in general. I think it's something that has seemed, at least to me, promising for a long time, but I haven't seen a lot of people executing on it. So it's exciting to hear that.
It's difficult to find the party or entity who will pay for it. And what I just did is something that will pay for it. The other thing is we've been looking at remediating water bodies, the lakes that are in terrible condition. You can do that too, but there the problem is that who's going to pay for it? You may get a grant from the government or the residents, lakeside residents, but it's a commons
problem that you perhaps don't have when you're dealing with, say, a sewage treatment plant or an aquaculture situation, which it's on them to do it.
They have a pipeline from where everything is coming out, so it's pretty easy to point the region of the problem. So but
okay, so I don't want to go on too long, and I would be remiss to ask, what is the pink light over your shoulder, and what are you growing in those containers?
The pink light is just it's red and blue. Actually, it's just LED lights. There's a big lemon tree growing behind me, and there's a smaller lemon tree here. It's a different kind of lemon. I don't know what it is actually. We've grown this one from seed with my wife 20 years ago, and I have a clone from that was actually producing fruit this year. So I'm getting my first harvest of lemons.
Nice.
And I've been harvesting figs for a very long time. Actually, I have a whole forest of fig trees, probably 30 of them.
Wow. And
next year, I think I'm going to plant a whole grow tunnel full of figs, because they've been doing so well in my unheated greenhouse for the last 2 years that they've overwintered, and then they've yielded massive amounts of figs the next summer. I'm the only guy here who's producing figs, and I have 100% of the fig leaf market in somebody.
You're sitting on a monopoly, a Finnish monopoly of Finnish fig monopoly.
That's right. And all those plants, they grow in biochar. So I've been experimenting with, let's say, biochar based grow media for a long time, and both hydroponic and conventional grow media, or passive hydroponic, active hydroponic, how you want to call it. But also as a kind of just as a potting media, so that but we just process it in a certain way and inoculate it. And I've had fabulous success. Especially my lemon tree that I just talked about. I planted in a 40-liter biochar pot about this time last year, and a few weeks after that I started flowering, and it's been flowering continuously ever since.
Wow.
And I don't know if it has to do with the biochar or the fact that it got into a bigger pot, or that
maybe
it was already
really likes figs.
Yeah, all of those things. Yeah, but it happened. So I'm more than happy to believe that the biochar had something to do with it.
That's great.
But I'm a farmer. I live here on a homesteading kind of a setting, and I've been using biochar in all kinds of places. We both in my aquaponic system, in my greenhouse. I use it in my cow shed as bedding for my cows. They even eat it sometimes. I give it to my neighbors. I take it to my summer house for toilet litter. So, but those are just kind of like overly simplified uses of it.
No, obviously.
But
Well, so thank you so much for joining us and sharing all this with us. I know from prior conversations you've got a lot more to share. So hopefully we'll have you back on and talk about another facet of biochar at some point. But how do we follow along with Carbofex in the meantime, and you?
Well, I've never said this before, but if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm all over the place. And also LinkedIn. I'm a little bit less active there recently, but I try to post something that has professional meaning of some sort every now and then, and Carbofex also. So, but I think Twitter, and also if you just keep an eye on the company in general, the website and those, we have a lot of stuff, and then the media in general, and follow you, for example, because I guess we're going to do a regular show, once every 2 months, Friday nights.
You'll always be here. All right. Well, thank you, Sampo. I really appreciate the time. I'll post links to all the stuff you mentioned, and we'll look forward to hearing about progress on some of these. Sounds like collaborations that are coming up. Look forward to hearing about those, and wish you luck with them. I'm really eager to publish the first one as soon as we get it all wrapped up. So, and thanks for covering all this stuff. It's important. All right. Well, thank you. Take care. Take care. Cheers.